members, and Superintendent Dempsey. This evening, Santa Teresa High School is very excited to present 2 CTOs that through their state competition, they are moving on to nationals. But before I present the sponsors, I wanted to take a few seconds just to acknowledge their hard work. These teachers do not only show up for their students on a daily basis for their content subjects, but they also use their energy, their resources, and their time to make sure that they sponsor these clubs, which is very needed. And as we all know, it's hard. It's hard to sacrifice sometimes maybe even your family time, but you do it for our students. So for that, I am very grateful, very fortunate to be the principal of that school with adults like themselves. So start off with Ms. Maria Gonzalez. She is the sponsor for Educators Rising.
Good afternoon. I want to first start off by thanking our administration for supporting us, and of course everybody at Central Office for making everything happen for our students. And I would like to introduce my president for Educators Rising, which is Andres Ochoa, and he will be presenting our winners for today. Andres.
Good afternoon. My name is Andres Ochoa. I am the president for Educators Rising. We competed March 11th against 24 schools, and we are very happy to have won in the following categories. Third place in Children's Literature K-3 is He Said Fuentes. First place in an Ethical Dilemma slide presentation is Sofia Garcia Hernandez, Angela Ramirez, and myself. And first place in an Interactive Bulletin Board is Angela Ramirez and myself. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to go to nationals competition at Washington, D.C. in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez and Andres Ochoa. The next group we have sponsors Mr. Saul Nunez and Mr. Kenneth Bertol. My apologies that they are the sponsors for Technology Student Association.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for having us here today. We just wanted to recognize our students who are competing this year in their state conference. We had a lot of winners, we had a lot of success, and I would like to introduce to you our local chapter president, and not only that, she's also the state president for TSA. This year she's had many prestigious universities accept her into the universities, including Yale, Harvard, and Cornell University. I would like to bring up Paloma Del Valle.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paloma Del Valle, and I'm president of the Technology Student Association Santa Teresa High's chapter, as well as the New Mexico State president. And I'm here to introduce you to TSA and our accomplishments this school year. TSA is a program that prepares students like myself and my peers with the resources to succeed in a career in STEM. Through competitive events that allow us to learn about specific fields in STEM such as biotechnology, coding, software development, and so much more, students have the opportunity to flourish as leaders in the classroom and eventually in the workforce. Personally, I've been in TSA since I was a freshman in high school, and I have noticed a dramatic shift in my ability to lead and be prepared to take on any challenge and endeavor in my college and professional career. Because I have been prepared by the pre-professional resources offered by TSA, I have been able to participate in STEM programs sponsored by MIT and the US Naval Academy, as well as demonstrate demonstrate a deep understanding of science and technology concepts in class. I consider GSA to be one of the most important organizations I have had the pleasure of being a part of and now leading. The amount of growth my peers and I have exhibited these past few years is truly monumental to our future projects beyond high school. And with that introduction, I present to you this year's national qualifiers and state champions. So we have Josue de la O, who has won 5 golds. We have Lluvia Flores, who has won 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. We have Martha Gallardo, who won 1 gold and 1 bronze. Iris Hernandez with 1 gold and 2 silvers. Leah Keys Shawal with 2 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. Abraham Nunez with 1 gold, 2 silvers, and 1 bronze. Crystal Pantoja with 1 gold and 1 silver. Giovanni Fuentes with 4 golds and 1 silver. Jacob Cabrera with 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. Myself with 3 golds and 2 bronze. Ethan Garcia with 3 golds and 2 silvers. David Soria with 1 gold and 1 bronze. Jordan Reyes with 5 golds. Luis Rangel with 1 gold. Yasmin de Luna with 2 golds. Xavier Estrada with 1 gold and 2 silvers. Christian Urrutia with 1 gold and 1 silver. Gabriela Varga with 2 gold and 1 silver. Arlene Sepulveda with 1 gold and 1 silver. Joshua Silva with 1 silver. And finally, last but not least, David Rubio with 1 silver. With your support, we will be heading to Dallas, Texas for the TSA National Conference. My peers and I have worked extremely hard over these past few years, these past few months, to be able to be recognized at the national and state conference. So thank you so much for your support and for your help in this journey.
great job by this young man, young lady. So I'm here to just provide you with an equity council update. So, Mr. Reyes, would you please scroll the next slide? Thank you, sir. We started the process in October. We had a meeting with principals and directors, our monthly meeting, and that's when I presented a presentation detailing what are the goals of the Inequity Council, what are the guidelines, the participants, and answer some questions. What I asked from each of the high school child, so that I felt that that would be help us to represent really the main focus was two groups, and that was students with disabilities and English language learners. So then we continued to well, let me share a couple more things. The goal really when you look at equity is, I think as a district we provide, we do a really good job of providing equality. And the goal is to get some aspects that maybe we need to improve and start looking at it from the perspective of a parent. Because I can look at it from the director's perspective. I can ask Mr. Dempsey to give me a superintendent's perspective, school board members, teachers. But sometimes, and I know it's difficult, especially with COVID, to be able to take that information from a parent. And here's a tough question that we have to ask him. Can you provide us a perspective on natural child? Something that would help a child just like yours. And so that's what we have asked this member of parents. Our first meeting was in November 8th. Thank you. And on this one, we had a presentation where we were talking to parents, what is the difference between equality and equity from your perspective? Once again, we reviewed with them what was the purpose of the Equity Council. The thinking is, if we want parents to help us to make decisions, we have to provide capacity. We got to build capacity. We have to provide them with information. We have to equip them with the ability to be able to give us their perspective based on some knowledge. We also went over about the goals for the Equity Council, and then we explained to some extent how we were going to start looking at it from a SPED perspective. What kind of programs do we have? What kind of supports we can provide? What kind of assessments we also have? And then also from the EL perspective, language needs, supports, trainings, local and state type of professional development. And this was kind of happening through COVID. So some of these meetings happened in person and some of them were virtual. Moving on to November 9th, to December and to January, Mr. Rabinat was instrumental in having a couple of presentations with parents where we actually broke them into groups with some of the special ed specialists. The key here was, what is the equity in special ed? How does materialize when you look at instruction? How are parents involved in the process? How is the general teacher involved in the process? The special ed, building capacity once again. What kind of professional development we give those teachers? What kind of professional development we give regular ed teachers for the purpose of working together? Because as you all know, a special ed child is going to have many needs, and it has to be met via the regular ed and via the special ed environment. And looking at curriculum also. So that took a couple of meetings, and then once we got into one more please. Then we started looking at language, English language learners. What is social language? What's the difference between social language and academic language? Because a lot of our children are bilingual. A lot of our children that are not in a bilingual classroom are bilingual. But are they academically bilingual? Are they biliterate? How can we best support them using their native language, be it English or be it Spanish? How do we reinforce that so that we can, in essence, move from a social language into an academic language? What are language proficiencies? We also talk to them about how do we initially assess the child and place them accordingly, be it a bilingual classroom, be it a dual language classroom, or be it a monolingual classroom. Every slide has that presentation, so that will give you the opportunity to go in more detail. And at any time, if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. But I'm just kind of giving you an overview. Are there any questions so far? Then moving on to March, just last month, then we went into talking to our parents, our members, about the different alternative language programs, be it a bilingual, be it a transitional, be it a dual language. What do we do with newcomers? How do we work with newcomers at the middle school and high school level? And then really the group that I believe that we need to strengthen the most is how do we provide supports to our ELs that are not in a bilingual classroom? Because maybe they were an EL in kindergarten, but their English scores were a lot higher than Spanish, so it didn't make sense for them to be in a bilingual classroom. Or they just haven't become proficient. We need to help them in a couple of domains, speaking and writing. And then we looked at demographics, professional development, and then how do we monitor, the special ed programs, and how do we monitor the bilingual ELD programs. And so that's really where we are. The next step is, last year, the Equity Council was composed of a different group. Some of the parents came back, and they answered from, it's called a Readiness Assessment. This came from TED. So that's what we're looking at working on next Monday. And then from then, spoken to Ms. Rosie Villalobos, we'll present to parents. Now we'll start talking a little more about finances, fundings, art, ESSER funds, Title I funds. We can do some Title III funds. And then eventually, it's taken about 7 to 8 months, is to start talking about some recommendations that they would have for the superintendent, perhaps for the board. That's in 10 minutes or less, a picture of where we are when it comes to the Equity Council. I stand for any questions.
Questions or comments? This is Louise. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Leiva. So upon building that capacity, I think that's very critical, right, in order for parents to understand what it looks like. After that building capacity is done and all this information is given to them and provided, so am I hearing correctly that you're also getting the input from them, or at this point you're more directing it towards the building that where they are informed? And then what are the next steps and what does the commitment look like? Like, do they have to, is it a 2-year term?
So the state says 3 or 4 years, but I'm going to be very transparent with you.
It's difficult right now. I mean, if you speak to any principal, it's very difficult because one of the things that I'm going off on a tangent here. I've asked principals, hey, can you work with that member that you
is representing your building and working with other parents, and they do. But it's difficult for them to expect the same parents to come back. We started out with 12 parents. We were working with about 6 of them now. And we provided them with information.
But I think sometimes it's difficult for the parent. We're trying to simplify it to some extent, but it's difficult for them to be able to receive that knowledge that, and sometimes it's they want to make decisions, but it's looking at how is that going to affect not just my child, how is that going to affect 5,000 ELs, how is that going to affect 2,300 special ed children. And so the goal really would be to continue providing maybe at a smaller amount, building capacity, providing more information, but really start asking them, and that's where the readiness assessment comes in. And I'll be more than glad to provide you with a copy of that. There's a few questions that relates to ELs and to special ed children. Where do you think the district is in this particular case, or in that particular case? As a matter of fact, if you look at that slide where it says Equity Readiness Assessment, that will give you the copy of it. Okay, and I'll be more than glad to send you this presentation.
Great, and so, last question. I understand some of the campuses are building their own equity council within the campus. So is that part, so the representative would come here, then they would be able to transfer that information onto the campus so that it builds not only the capacity within that person that is present here, but also amongst the ones that are part of the one at campus, and then perhaps disseminate that information to other parents? Is that the vision?
That's the idea. You got it. That's the idea. If we are working on that process, are we there yet? I'm going to say no. But that would be the goal. If I had 16 elementary schools, at some point, at least 10 of would be sending, and it's not that the principals, I mean, they're putting all their effort into this. It's just parents are parents. And they would come here, we would have a conversation here at the district level, but they already had a conversation at their site, because how does that affect North Valley? How does that affect Chaparral Elementary? How does that affect Anthony Elementary? What are the commonalities among all those schools, and what is different to one particular area?
Right, so then every campus has one representative. Is that what I'm...
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Questions or comments? I don't believe so. Thank you,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leva.
Thank you.
Next item is our legislative update. I'll be just discussing this briefly and present. So today marks the beginning of a special session. I checked right before our meeting began, and I think 3 bills at this point have been filed, one of which is required to help fund the special session. One thing to watch for, and I haven't seen it come up yet, but I do believe there'll be at some level a proposal to allocate additional funds to school districts for increased fuel costs. And so I'll be watching for that and try to keep you updated on where that's at and the possibility. That was strongly supported by New Mexico Public Education Department, and I think the governor's office as well was in support of that. And that would offset, again, probably the majority of those dollars would be for our daily route buses and those expenses, because, you know, we negotiated those contracts probably when diesel was around $2.80 a gallon, and now it's definitely getting up over $4 pretty quickly. So that's a pretty big hit on those pieces. So, any questions or any thoughts of things that you might have heard of or would like me to watch for as we? I don't know how long the special session will last. I'm hearing a couple days, and so you know, we'll see probably pretty quickly. But if you hear of anything, feel free to text me, and I'll try to check into it for you. Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment. If we could, I was talking to Mr. Laro and Mr. Madrid, and so yeah, they apologize for not coming because they started their legislative session. So they would ask maybe sometime in May they can come, and then they can also give us their update for their special legislative session. That would be awesome.
Absolutely, we'd be happy to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment. I know that our representatives held a town hall, and so it was a brand new thing, and there was some participation, but I would encourage everyone to participate whenever those are available, because they are the representatives that are speaking and trying to get some funding for us. So this one was just recently, and perhaps they'll continue doing that, because again, it is critical to have that partnership and understand how they work and what it looks like. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you. Next item we have is our student representative this evening. This is Gideon Potts, who's an 11th grader at Chaparral High School.
Alrighty. Before I get started, just wanted to say that I'm very happy to be here. I'm honored, and I'm very happy representing my school and the people in it. It just is such an experience for me, and I just am very grateful. And I'll get started. With recent events, seniors and juniors had a wonderful prom at Grace Gardens on March 18th, especially after missing out on the high school experience for 2 years. And juniors are currently taking their NMSAR state science test. For upcoming activities, with the CHS Econ on April 9th, National Honor Society will be hosting this community event. National Honor Society is also cleaning up our community. This week, they removed graffiti in the community. We also have an upcoming Earth Day event hosted by the Gardening Club. BPA's audio podcast team plays first place, and its video production team plays second place in state competition. Business Professionals of America also has national competition on May 3rd. Our mentorship program, hosted by Ms. Hernandez, recently completed their first university trip with freshmen and seniors to get them pumped for college. FCCLA is currently in competition this week. Wish them luck. Seniors are receiving their caps and gowns, as well as receiving news on scholarships they applied for this month. That's all good. Pro Start got first place for management this week. Michaela Biddle placed second place in the creative lecture competition for Educators Rising, and also placed first place in the Braille Challenge competition. TSA, first and second place in forensic science, first for photographic technology, and first in promotional design. For sports activities, track and field have 2 more meets before they compete in state competition. Baseballs were doing great and has 1 more game before going to district. Softball is participating in team building exercises to build up team morale. Cheerleading has their competition back in February and placed for state competition. Girls basketball did great this year, with the offensive MVP and defensive MVP being Andrea and Leslie, respectively. And that's everything I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potts, for that update. We appreciate it. Board member report. Ms. Murillo, you want to get us started this evening?
Sure. Thank you so much for bringing all of those students. It was amazing to see all those awards and being recognized, and seeing so many students going to nationals representing our state. I mean, it's just great, and I get the chills, and I told my husband, I know I'm gonna start crying because this weekend was very emotional for me, being at San Diego. It was just amazing, an amazing experience, and I was telling my colleagues at the airport, I'm very motivated, and it was very emotionally drained because personal experience came in, and hearing experiences from educational leaders. And one thing that kept popping in my head, it was the whole weekend and then all day today, it was our teachers, right? We're here to represent our district, we're here to advocate for you guys, for our students, but there's, they said, I think it was on Saturday, think about the teacher that made a big impact in your life, right? I couldn't think of anybody, because my experiences were all about all of them throughout my life. But you guys came into my mind because you guys made an impact on my kids personally, and that's why I'm here. Not only to support my own kids, but for you guys, to be a voice for you guys. And thank you so much for everything that you guys do for my kids and for all of our students. Thank you to our student rep. I mean, you did amazing. This is just the first step, right? For whatever you want to do in life, and I applaud you for being here, just being up here, and speaking in public, and it's already a big plus. So I hope that you accomplish all of your dreams. One thing that I do want to implement, and I've been saying to stay number one, and they mentioned it in this the national, sorry, it was a national, I'm like, I keep saying I went to San Diego, but it wasn't just for fun. I went for the School Board Association. It was a national conference. And one thing that they I heard over and over again throughout the whole weekend, it was, as a board, show transparency and communication. Be transparent, and so if you guys have any questions, and if you guys ever have, want to question our decision, at least, or my decision, when it comes to voting, please ask, because there is a reason. It's not just, this is why are we voting, and I think that comes with communication and transparency, and it goes both ways, right? It's just not us because we're up here and you guys, because you guys are behind the screen, for those that are seeing virtually, or those who are here. And so really, my report altogether is just thank you so much for everything that you guys do. Please don't stop, don't give up. I truly am very, very grateful. That's all.
Mr. Castillo?
I just had a tooth pulled out, so I want to refrain if you don't mind. Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Good evening to everyone. Thank you for being present. I think I'm going to concur with Ms. Murillo, what she was saying. Thank you to the representative, and obviously, you know, this builds capacity, right? You see them and how they communicate. We saw Ms. Paloma, just amazing, right? And I think that giving our children that opportunity is amazing. And I concur with her also that the teachers that GISD has, you all are amazing, not just the teachers, all staff. You know, you dedicate so much time, and Mr. Dempsey mentioned, right, that they dedicate extra hours, you know, whenever there's those activities. And so being at the NSBA, which is the National Student Board Association conference, it was great. You know, it is very, very, it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of sessions, and I'm a note taker, so I took a few notes here, just a few of all the different sessions that I went to, and it was so inspirational, right? It reminded me why I'm here, and the reason I'm here, and it's always been my plan. I work towards getting here because I want to be that voice for the people that sometimes, for whatever reason, you don't speak, right? And so being up there, I learned that we need to work together. And one of the things that really, really highlighted for me was they said, you need to be proactive instead of reactive. And so I think that goes for all of us. It's not just on this end, it's not just the people that are trying to get things going, but it's from all the way from student to the parent to the teachers, the directors. Everyone needs to be proactive, and like Ms. Murillo said, if there's anything that you all feel that we're not accomplishing or it's not making sense, please ask, and ask the person that really is acquainted with the subject, because many times, you know, if I ask my friend is also upset, and so my friend and I will end up being upset even more, twice the way we were feeling, and that's okay. But getting the correct information is always critical, right? And that's how we're going to move. So again, I just wanted to mention about that we were there to really learn and to really think about things that we can do to improve within our district. I think Gadsden is doing a great job, but there's still room for improvement. And like always, just to remind you, there's always coffee with the principal, coffee with the superintendent. There's the morning message that there was a little glitch this past Monday, but it's okay. That will be taken care of. And so, you know, sometimes things happen, but it's a way to keep informed and to know what is happening within, whether it's your campus, whether it's district-wide, and also participating during the board meetings and becoming, you know, learning what is happening and what we're trying to do. And if you're not in agreement, it's okay, we can talk. But remember, not always are you going to get the response that you're looking for, but we can talk. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Just a little update. It will be a Wednesday morning report, but we got it corrected, and it was my error, and I apologize, but we'll get that out tomorrow, and then should be back on track for Monday morning messages next week. Ms. Torres?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening, and to those that are watching on streaming, thank you so much. I am so happy. I didn't get to go to San Diego, but I am so happy for you, and for those of you, which is your first time, Mrs. Murillo and Mrs. Rodriguez, and I think Danny, I'm not sure, maybe third or fourth time? Third time. And so it gives me chills, because it's like, I remember the first time I went to San Antonio, and that's, yeah, I mean, even as board members, you know, we need PD, we need motivation, we need to be inspired, we need to come back with new ideas that we can make work, maybe not exactly like those other districts, because you've got superintendents and school boards and maybe teachers presenting new ideas to us. So I am so excited to hear the things that you heard and you learned, and thank you for the bag. this video. So I'm so happy for you guys. I want to also, and why it's so important, because when I attended San Antonio, it's like, I think that was the first time that I kept bugging Mr. Dempsey, strategic plan, and that's where that idea came from. And then along came my colleagues, same thing, and hey, now we are on the road to having a strategic plan. So it's like us too, we need ideas, we need to get motivated, refreshed, and dream big for Gadsden. Let me see. Also, thank you, Gideon, for your presentation, and congratulations to all our award recipients, Gadsden High School and Santa Teresa High School kiddos. Ms. Rodriguez had mentioned that there was an education hall, what is it called? A town hall meeting with Doreen Gallegos, Mr. Willie Madrid, and Mr. Lara. And so I really appreciated them doing that. I took the time to also give my opinion as a teacher. And so those of you who are watching, I am rooting for special education teachers to get a stipend because they do as much work. And then also I was questioning, for those of you who are bilingual educators, why do we have to continue getting $1,500 that we've been getting for like forever now? So I addressed that to our Deputy Secretary, Gwen Perea, and hopefully she will take that. At least I try to plant a seed with them and our state reps. And then just a reminder to parents, I believe the testing window has begun, correct? And so just a reminder, make sure your kids are not absent. I know that our principals and teachers appreciate, during our testing window that our kids come on time, give them breakfast, and try to, as best as we can, make those appointments for another time during that testing window. And if you need to know when that testing window is, get together with your administrators and teachers will let you know when that's going to occur at your campuses. And then the last two things is it's so exciting to see on social media that our high schoolers got to dance at their proms, and so I was happy to see that. I know Chaparral has had their prom, and so has Santa Teresa. I'm not sure about Gadsden High School, but next weekend? Okay, the 9th? Okay, so, va a ir a bailar, Mr. Hiro. Va a bailar, tira chancla. Okay, so I'm so happy that, the things that we used to do, that they're coming back and the kids are enjoying themselves. And then I'd like to conclude again with we're in April, right? So happy birthday to all our April babies, whether you're a student, parent, administrator, any April babies out there that want to admit that it's their birthday. Happy birthday, God bless you. We're sure glad you were born, and we're blessed that you're part of the Gadsden Independent School District family. Thank you, and I conclude my report. Okay, moving on to Item 4, which is our Human Resources Report. That is there just for public notice. No action is required by the board. And thank you, Dr. Browder, and your staff. Moving on to Item 5, modification of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as is.
Mr. Castillo has made a motion to accept the agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Moving on to Item 6, our regular school board minutes for March the 10th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the regular school board minutes for March 10th, 2022.
Okay, Mrs. Rodriguez has made a motion to accept our board minutes for March 10th, 2022. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda. Before anybody makes the motion, are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. So do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mrs. Moody has made a motion to accept the consent agenda. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to our open forum. Ms. Delgado, do we have any speakers this evening?
Madam President, we have none.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to action. We've got 3 action items this evening. So action item 9A, which is Help New Mexico Memorandum of Understanding. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Borsiago is going to present this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. last month, I brought a draft of an MOU between GISD and Help New Mexico. The goal of this MOU is to optimize funding for 3-year-olds, but most importantly, to begin a relationship of collaboration with Head Start. I bring it before you for approval, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, I do. So my question was, so from the last presentation, I'm understanding that the memorandum of understanding is for Help New Mexico to then take 3-year-olds, but I guess my question is, does that mean that we're no longer going to service 3 years old, or is that not what it means? We'll still continue to service some kiddos, and who would they be?
Yeah, so it's through partnership. They will be funding the classroom with their teaching staff, but we will be working collaboratively to make sure that the curriculum is of our quality, and we'll also be working together to make sure that we have PD together for staff, and that we're sharing waiting lists so that we're not competing for the same kids, but rather working together to identify which kids would be best with Head Start and which kids would be best with us.
Okay, so then also there would be discussion as far as when you have an individual student who might require special, speech therapy, occupational therapy. I think, I don't believe Help New Mexico offers those services. Is that correct? And what they refer them to us?
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, our special education department provides services to all our community agencies that have students with IEPs that need those services that are of age 3. So those services will continue with our Help New Mexico classrooms.
So then they would be going out to Help New Mexico.
So if I can just go back to our MOU, Help New Mexico is coming onto our campuses, so we'll literally have classrooms side by side together, the 3-year-old classroom from Help New Mexico and our 4-year-old classroom from GISD. And together we'll be working together, receiving the same schedule, the same food, and also the same services from our SPED department.
Okay, so I think I misunderstood. So then they'll be coming on campus, but also Help New Mexico will still have some of their classes at their sites.
So right now, Help New Mexico doesn't have classroom space. They're actually working remote, and that's why we're opening our classrooms to them. They have been without classroom space for approximately 3 years. So we are really collaborating, to get them the space they need for their kids, but work conjointly to provide the best services for them.
Okay, and then my last question would be, what are the hours that the kiddos
It would be aligned to our GISD schedule. So for our 3-year-old classrooms, there's 2 half-day, and we start approximately at 8 o'clock and end at 1:30.
Okay. And then I just, you probably are aware, because I've been investigating this, is there's some daycares, one in particular that I was calling, and I asked, like, for next year, because they said, hey, we offer a pre-K 3-year-old program, and then they said that their hours are from 8 to 2. So my question is, why don't we offer those same hours? Is it because of lack of classrooms, or what's the difference?
Sure, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. Ms. Flores, right now, there's a big umbrella of early childhood, and it's now a department called the ECECD department. But there are school-based classrooms and community-based classrooms. Each have different criteria. We fall under the same criteria for the Department of Education, the Public Education Department. The criteria for daycares is under CYFD. The funding is different, the hours are different. We, as a district, are obligated to comply with 900 school hours, and we can determine how we are going to provide those 900 hours. It varies for other sites that are CYFD and daycare. The funding is different, the requirements are different.
Okay, and then my last question is, because that I really don't know, is Head Start still here in New Mexico? Is it based on income or not? And
yes,
so then that means, well, go ahead, sorry.
No, you're absolutely correct. It is based on income, so we'll prioritize that those students who qualify go with Head Start. And then, fortunately, our program has no income limits. It's open to all the students in our district. So we are together working to make sure we cover more students.
Okay. No, that's all. Ms. Burciaga, thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions?
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
This is an action item.
Yes. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the Help New Mexico MOU. Action item 8.
Mrs. Rodriguez has made a motion to accept the Help New Mexico Memorandum of Understanding. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Moving on to action item 9B, dual legal representation during employee discharge hearings. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we haven't had many of these, but I just want to make sure we're prepared for a possible protocol. And so what this is an action item that we're agreeing to a process, okay? And there's many processes that could be used. This process, what I'm going to describe to you is, if we were to have an employee discharge hearing, there would actually be 2 attorneys. That's the dual legal representation. One attorney would be charged with presenting the case and presenting any witnesses to the board. The second attorney would be utilized specifically for board advisement and to keep the process moving. Does that make sense? So the district would actually employ the dual legal representation. So if we have a discharge hearing, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that, and we would agree prior to having one of those how we're going to handle it.
Questions, comments, or concerns?
Madam President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
So upon having the legal advice for the board, would that be during when the actual case is happening, or would we be getting more information prior to? How would that work?
The information prior, so one attorney would be working with possible witnesses, and those are usually probably not board members, because if you were that close to a situation, you'd probably have to recuse yourself. But that first attorney A, would be working with probably district employees, parents or students, to describe maybe a situation or something that occurred to warrant what the district believes is a discharge. The other attorney would be utilized really for advisement, and they would be with the board during the presentation and in executive as well. As you get to choose how you utilize them in terms of guidance.
So I do have a question, because I guess I could speak for myself. I've never been in one of these, so in the event that when it does occur, then we would enter into closed session with just the second lawyer, not the first one?
Correct. And keep in mind that the employee can choose to have it in a closed environment. Now, the board still can excuse himself into executive to have conversations, or the employee can choose to have it in an open meeting. So the entire process, other than the executive session, could be done in an open format if that's determined by the employee.
Oh, wow. So the employee could have the right to, the hearing could occur right now?
Madam President, that's correct.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item 9B, the dual legal representing during employee discharge hearings.
Mrs. Rodriguez has made a motion to accept action item 9B. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Moving on to action item 9C, class of 2022 graduation requirements. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Mr. Wogomuth is going to help us this evening with this particular item.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, thank you for having me this evening. Mr. Reyes, can you display that? Thank you very much. So tonight I bring forth to you a request for the suspension of the 26 credits for graduation for our cohort of 2022. Next slide, please, Mr. Reyes. As you receive, those of you on the board a couple years ago received a very similar situation, a similar presentation at the start of COVID. This policy here reminds you that you can suspend policy rather than just repeal it by a simple majority vote on an action night item. Next one, please, Mr. Reyes. In addition, it describes here, and I'll show you on a slide here in a moment, the 26 credits required for graduation in Gadsden. That's the policy IKF that we are asking you to suspend for the graduating class of 2020, or the cohort of 2022, which is graduating this year. Next slide, Mr. Reyes, please. Of course, in NMAC, it describes a requirement of the only 24 credits. So for a comparison, I'll share with you this slide here. The next one, please, Mr. Reyes. So really the only difference between the Gadsden ISD requirements and the NMAC requirements are tied to the number of foreign language and or career cluster courses. On the right-hand side, you can see our GISD requirements. We require 2 foreign languages and a career course. NMAC, the only difference, it requires a foreign language or a career course.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The other TV is off, and I can't see.
Okay. I'm sorry, that's
You don't have the glasses.
Because I
can't see.
can, let me see, Ms. Flores, if I can get this sent to you all right now, unless Mr. Reyes can fix that. I don't know if you'll have your laptops up there. I'll be happy to get it to you right now. Thank you, Ms. Flores, for pointing that out. I couldn't see either, okay? Also off for me, I didn't have any magic vision that, let's see if they get it going here. Let's see if you can get this done first.
Tú ves, Dan, yo no miro.
Oh, okay, we're gonna race, Mr. Carmona, me and you. Look, you're gonna win. No, I could have won. I think I could have won that one. Oh, Mr. Carmona. All right, Mr. Carmona, thank you. I didn't even try. I gave up.
Thank you.
I gave up early. So, thank you, Madam President. So on the, as I was saying, on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, the only substantial difference is the quantity of foreign language courses. Again, on the Gadsden side, we have 2 foreign languages and 1 career cluster course. On the left-hand side in NMAC is just one foreign language or 1 career cluster course. Please note that most of our electives that we have now, you can see that 7 electives are required at NMAC. Most of the electives that we have are all career courses, so our kids are getting, through our career pathways, a heavy dose of career courses, in addition to taking at least 1 foreign language in nearly all cases. Final slide, Mr. Reyes. So the reason that we are bringing this to you and why we're doing it at this time is we were kind of looking back on our records from the start of the pandemic to track, how many graduating classes that we suspended this requirement for, and through board action. And so in our research, we realized we had done 2020 and 2021 in a bucket. I think we looked back and realized that we did not. We had talked about including 2022 in there in some discussion, and we didn't ever, the records that we could find, we didn't ever through board action include it. So we do need to obviously include that for our seniors this year. So the action request tonight is to suspend GISD policy AKF, graduation requirements, making it 26 to 24 for our cohort graduating this year. That's the cohort of 2022, and will abide, of course, by NMAC. And then I think probably very soon here, you probably see as a discussion item in the next board meeting, having a further discussion again about if we want to make this action a permanent action, because I think it's really provided some flexibility for our students, some opportunities for our students by having less credits required for graduation. It really gives them an opportunity to explore some more. So that's the action that we're asking for this evening, a suspension of the graduation requirements, 26 to 24 for the graduating class of 2022. Any clarifications I can provide for the board?
Questions, comments, or concerns? Mrs. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a little bit almost devastating that we are in April and class of 2022 will graduate a month from now almost, right? Or a little bit over a month. I hear what you're saying, that we did, that it was just, that there was some discussion. I just wonder how many students have been put through that pressure of, having to take those 26 courses, 26 credits instead of those 24. In your expertise, what have you seen currently? Is that not the case?
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, on a positive note, I guess, again, positive that we caught this, because it needs an action that needs to be taken. As I shared with you earlier in describing why we're taking this action now, is because as a whole team, everybody involved in this district, we had discussed this, and so what has occurred, the seniors have not been under additional stress, because as the counselors moved into the start of the school year, they did schedule them, the seniors, to meet the 24 credit requirement. You understand what I'm saying? So at the start of this year, they were not scheduled under the idea that they needed 26 to graduate. They were scheduled under the model of the 24 credits for graduation. So kids were not taking any additional classes with the idea that they needed to have 26.
Which is great, right? But in reality, that's not what we are looking at currently, because if the decision is made that we remain with the 26 credits, where would we stand? I mean, I see what you're saying, that, they prepped them for the 24, right. But had it not been the case that it was, I'm sure it would have been seen prior, which is why we're here right now. So I think that, I just wonder how much, how many kids were thinking, oh my goodness, it's the 26 credits that are required. And it's something great, right? I think that Gadsden has always been very good in asking for those 26 credits instead of just the meeting what the state is asking us for, right, which is the 24. We go above and beyond, obviously, those 2 other credits. I think it is a great thing. I'm not saying that it's something that I'm not for, especially given the circumstance, right, that we have gone through so much. The kids have just, and we thought that this year was going to be better, and I think, it's not the normal that we were expecting. So it's something that definitely needs to be addressed, but I think for future hindsight, we speak about this sooner.
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, I don't know if 100% agreement is an equivalent amount, it's a 1,000,000% agreement. So we do need to take this action, of course, to support our seniors graduating this year. And on a note, on my door of my office for the next board meeting is a discussion about our graduation requirements and other elements related to graduation going forward for the cohort of 2023 and beyond. So, Madam Secretary, you don't have to wait too long, because that discussion for future years is coming soon.
Great, and I appreciate that, Ms. Murillo talked about transparency. Things happen and we learn. That's another thing that I also saw, we learn, we make mistakes, and we move forward, right? And I think that this is a perfect example.
Okay. So, any further questions or comments? I did just want to make a comment for our public out there that's in the audience and in the streaming is NMAC is New Mexico Administrative Code, which is an official collection of regulations to interpret laws passed by our legislature. So that, in case you were wondering what that is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is an action item, Ms. President.
Thank you. So let me see. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept action item 9C, class of 2022 graduation requirements.
Okay, Mr. Castillo has made a motion to accept action item 9C. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Moving now on to discussion items. The first one is discussion item 10A, Gadsden Independent School District Policy, GBEC, drug-free workplace. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this is just really a reminder. I think we're all aware that, through some legislative changes, recreational marijuana in New Mexico was made legal as of last Friday morning. And just a reminder for all employees and students as well, that really doesn't change anything associated with public education. Just like alcohol is forbidden from being on school campuses, employees and students are forbidden from being under the influence. It's the same thing for marijuana. So really, in a big picture, nothing really has changed. Even to the point that, I was reading over the weekend some documents to say that there's some possible federal changes associated with marijuana. Still will not change the requirement for a drug-free workplace. Each employee, when they are hired, signs a document that they understand that, and then there are a population of our employees who are responsible for student transportation, who are subject for random drug testing. And so in that particular aspect, that would be a zero tolerance policy for anyone that was found under the influence of any type of drug that's not prescribed. We can't take those risks with our kids when they're being transported. So I just kind of want to bring that up. I sent an email out as a reminder to all employees last week, and I've had a couple questions. I would say that I think our employees from right now seem to understand the expectation, and we'll deal with any situations as they come, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have specific to that policy.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Mrs. Murillo.
More of a comment and just awareness. Now that it became legal, be vigilant, especially with edibles. There's no smell, and you just never know. There was a situation in another school in another city, and I have Snapchat, guys, and I have friends, other teachers, and it was right there Monday morning, 7:45. And the whole headlight was out there. I'm doing this and this, and school starts at 8:20. So so I'm a little bit nervous. So just be vigilant and just remember you have to go to work, be with the kids, and don't take edibles with you. And so please, it makes me very nervous. So I told Mr. Dempsey, I'm like, expectations, and he's like, I'll send that email. So that's it.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Mrs. Rodriguez? Thank you.
I think that I'm hoping that is not the case with any employee here in Gadsden. I think we have done very well with the alcohol, knowing that it's zero tolerance. So definitely this will be, everyone knows that it's zero tolerance. So I don't expect anything like that, and I hope that it isn't that way, that any employee decides to come under the influence, even if there's just the minimal amount, there is an amount in your system. So that is still, there's nothing to gauge where if it's a little bit, if it's a lot. So if it's a little bit to us, it's a lot. So just keep that in mind.
And I just wanted to make a comment. I was sharing with Ms. Rodriguez that on Friday, April 1st, which was what? April Fool's Day? As I was getting lunch, I was like, oh yeah, because I was like, am I on the wrong line? Because, there was lines and lines, and I'm like, what is going on? So don't get in the wrong line at 7:30 in the morning, okay? But anyways, with that being said, just also take it very seriously. It's just a reminder to the public. Please make sure that you put those items out of reach of children, Please take care of your children, hopefully, so that nothing happens to our kiddos. Okay, so moving on to Discussion item 10B, GISD policy JIH-R student searches. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Board members, this is a little follow-up on the previous drug-free workplace, and so this particular policy attempts to address the possibility of using canines on our campuses, and that's technically a search and seizure, and so we want to be very serious about that, and we want to be very thoughtful about it. I do believe with the legalization of cannabis, there's some struggles that we're probably going to encounter. One of those being, for example, edibles. Those are very difficult. You can't just look at an item and determine whether it is or isn't. And I think exposure for our students is going to increase. So this could be a tool to utilize. Now, the district already has a policy on it, so if the question is it allowed? Yes, it's already allowed in policy. But before we take that step, I think it's important to have a conversation, make sure we understand the protocols that have to be in place, and understand that probably, it won't become real until it's real. And when it's real is when someone gets caught. And that's when it's real. And then we're all very serious, and there's consequences. And that could be, that could be a staff member or a student. For example, people may not understand that any vehicle parked on our property is subject to search. Doesn't matter who's driving it. And so, those are realities that we would have to deal with that. And we'd have to probably do some training with our administrators to make sure they understand their role, because typically the best protocol and the best legal guidance is that if you run a canine, you want your campus administration to be brought in immediately if the canine signals. Use a backpack as a simple example. The administrator searches the backpack. If the administrator finds something, then law enforcement is contacted. So that's very important that that process is followed, and it's really based on court cases. Due to there's a lower requirement for us as administrators of why we would search a backpack. Vehicles are no different. It would be the same protocol that would be utilized, and if something's found, then law enforcement would be contacted. And so, I'd like to hear your thoughts and how you feel about those things, and have some open dialogue about the possibility of utilizing canines. Like I said, it's already legal within the district. You don't have to do anything, but I think it's fair. My goal would be to advertise and remind everyone that we do have a drug-free campus requirement, and maybe even consider bringing in some canines as an educational purpose, and then randomly select a few campuses. And the process I've been a part of when I was a high school principal is no one in the district except the superintendent knew they were coming. The superintendent and they would show up. I had about 5 minutes to do a lockdown or shelter in place, and the drug dogs hit campuses. They would randomly select certain areas, and those are the areas they would use. Anytime, if we ever run into a classroom, you got to understand drug dogs are not allowed to hit individually on students. You have to remove the students from the classroom. They would remove their jackets and leave their backpacks, step out of the classroom, canine and the handler come in, close the door, and then the canine then does its work. They are, in my experience, they're very sensitive to specific items, and so even residue from your hands, they will many times alert on that. So it's very possible, and actually happened just about every time I had ever done this, that you wouldn't find anything, but the animal would still alert to a particular item, and that's usually residue that's on it. not always, but those are some examples. They are, the dogs have to be from a certified handler, and those dogs have to be certified every 3 months, and so there's some very specific requirements that have to be followed there. There are a couple of handlers in the El Paso area who do meet those criteria. What are your thoughts?
Comments? I mean, that's what I was thinking. Presentation, for all the students, kind of like, heads up, it's coming. And then from there, moving on. But I agree, being everybody, in the same page, this is what's happening, especially now that it's being, very advertised out there, what's going on. So that's exactly what I was going to suggest.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Mr. Dempsey, since there's several K-9 units in El Paso, we would have a contract with them? Would it be just one specific, we select one, or because there's several, it would be alternated? How would that look?
Ms. Rodriguez, Madam President, Ms. Rodriguez and board members, it's going to depend on the number of certified dogs they have available and certified handlers. So every dog obviously has to have a handler with them. And so I've been in situations where multiple dogs were used to cover a campus. So you're basically covering a larger area. The dog may not be available, and so then you would size down the area. With our size campuses, one dog could not search an entire campus in a reasonable amount of time. I think what I would probably do is try to get, like anything, try to establish multiple MOUs, and that way we have some options, so that as we begin this process, we might find some that work better than others and work for us better than others, and kind of try to find what works best for us.
And of course, I agree on the creating that awareness, right, before bringing them in. We all need to be responsible, whether it's a student, it's a parent, giving the parents that information that if your vehicle is within the campus when there's this search, you are also going to be held accountable, and there's a possibility that your vehicle will be searched. So knowing what steps are taken and what it looks like is critical for everyone to understand that this is serious, right? And especially now that, like we say, it's legal, but it's not legal. So, there's certain areas that it's not okay to bring them in. So definitely creating this process and that awareness is going to be a key component to this being successful.
So I have 3 questions. Mr. Dempsey, would this be primarily for secondary schools? Because I remember at Gadsden Junior High getting with the dogs, and I remember that. So is it primarily secondary, middle school, and a high school, or have you ever seen elementary? I don't know. I'm just...
I don't know how everybody feels about it. In my mind, I definitely see this work primarily done at the secondary. However, I don't want to miss the opportunity to educate our elementary kiddos. I think that's where we really gain some ground down the road, is if they understand the purpose of a canine and what we're trying to avoid. I think then we eliminate possibilities down the road. So I don't want to, what we might do is something like try to schedule to where we do some education type presentations at our elementaries, and also then do, after we've done presentations at our secondaries, then we actually do some real searches.
And then my next question is, so, like I said, I remember them coming in the classroom, and so is it at the same time or later on, is it also the cars in the parking lot, or what's your experience with that?
Typically, the process with the cars is literally you just run the parking lot. I can tell you from an experience I had in a previous district in Cloudcroft that it's pretty impressive the ability of these animals. And so, I've seen a vehicle alerted on, I'm sorry, I think that's the term they use, alerted on in the middle of a snowstorm with literally vertical snow going, and it was a prescription med in a glove box. And the animal alerted to it, and it wasn't illegal because it was to the person that owned the vehicle, we have to understand that you never know. You never know how once this begins, you never know how one run can go. And I've seen as many as 4 or 5 students who you might have never guessed, and they're in possession. And once that occurs, we go straight to the handbook and we administer consequences.
And then, I guess my other question is, 2 more questions is, so when they're going through the classrooms, it's still the same that they pass, and then if they hit on somebody, like you said, or I don't know, how does it look like nowadays?
Madam President, a dog can no longer hit on an individual. So when you run a canine through a classroom, you have to ask, what you'll do is like if I was a principal, I'd walk in and ask the students to remove their jackets, put their backpacks on the floor, stand up, and exit the room. And so all the students leave the room, and the teacher. Then the handler and the canine come in. I then typically close the door to secure it, and they usually just let the dog loose at that point. And then the dog starts, and they start doing their work. So if an item is on a student, I can't hit on that. I mean, the dog will not alert. We won't even put the dog near them because that's been proven in the Supreme Court. We can't do that. That's an illegal search, actually.
Okay. And so then the dog doesn't single out somebody. It knows that something's in that classroom, and that's why we have them leave their backpack and that includes the teacher, right? Too.
Absolutely.
They leave their whatever they're.
Oh yeah, teachers leave all their belongings as well, and then stand up and exit.
And then my last question is, because I don't know the answer. What does it cost, and where would that money be coming from?
The contract I had in Cloudcroft, we ran 2 dogs, and it was about $8,600 a year. And that had to do with travel, and interesting enough, that handler came from El Paso, so he's literally about 4 miles away from us right now. And so, it's not the cost. The cost is not astronomical, and I'm not trying to create a $140,000 bill with this. I think we want to use it as that deterrent. I think that's maybe the point is it's going to get harder and harder as more edible type items become more and more available, right? And for us to determine, even for law enforcement to determine if that gummy bear has cannabis in it or not, or a canine, that's going to take seconds to figure that out. So what I'm hoping, or what I think the purpose would be, create a deterrent that says not at school. Don't know what happens outside school, but not at school. And that would be the purpose behind it.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, thank you, sir.
Let me ask the board, though, I want to be sure, does anybody have any reservations? And it's okay to have those, but I want to make sure that we work to try to address any concerns, major concerns you have. And if you don't have them, don't know them right now, text them to me, email them to me. We'll work that through our presentation and how we start presenting this to students and parents. This would be part of a parent meeting that I would do as well. And if you have those thoughts or ideas, please sure and send them to me, and I'd be happy to weave that in.
I guess, so would there be a presentation that could be done, because obviously right now nobody says there's reservations, but would there be like a short, do we need another presentation from them, or are we all clear cut what's going to happen? Because then,
what I think I'm taking in, the idea was just to have a discussion. There's no action required now. The board could guide me before we start this. You want to take action. You can guide me on that, and you don't have to make that decision right now. If you would prefer that, that's fine. I'll start preparing the presentations, and then we can start maybe, I'll bring those back as discussions. We can have some conversations about them. I want to work, What I'm honestly thinking is spend this time preparing those, start getting those out to parents, and then probably actually begin the process in August, so we know, everybody knows up front, this is what our expectation is drug-free environments.
Okay, which leads me to, so these presentations, will they be recorded, or are they going to come to our campuses?
Yeah.
And then that way we can also view these presentations, and if we have questions, then,
Absolutely, we can record them, we can do all those kind of pieces. Anything we can use to help educate and get the message out, that's just going to be a bonus for all of us.
And thank you. Okay, moving on to discussion item 10C, PSCOC Pre-K Awards. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Gallegos is going to help us with this item.
Good evening, Board President, board members, and Superintendent Dempsey. I bring before you for discussion MOUs that we need to consider for signatures, and that is the pre-K applications. We actually have applied for 2 pre-K applications, and the MOU indicates that they are awarding Phase 1. Now, Phase 1 of this pre-K application indicates that they are awarding the design money for the project. I have forwarded all the documentation to you as to what the MOUs indicate, but coming down to the numbers, the PSCOC has discussed and has awarded Chaparral Pre-K a total estimated cost, which would be a total estimated cost of $2,614,286 was the application process. The current match is 30% Gadsden, 70% PSFA. So Phase 1, which is the design phase, would mean that the total cost is $261,429, or Gadsden's portion, $78,429. The state would give us $183,000 for that design of 4 classrooms, which includes the restrooms, adding them to the Chaparral High School pre-K that currently exists there. Then if we move to Phase 2, after the design, we decided to build this facility, then the current match to date, which could change construction costs, is that GISD would have to come up with $705,857, and PSFA would contribute $1,647,000. We also applied for, in our discussion with the central management team, a Riverside pre-K, actually building an identical Chaparral pre-K in Riverside up there at the southwest corner. So that project, when we estimated, was $5,698,857. At the current match of 30% for the district, 70% for the state, Phase 1, we would have to come up with $170,966. PSFA would kick in $398,920 for a total design money of $569,886. If we moved on to the second phase of actually building that facility, the GISD construction cost at 30%, depending on the pricing, would be $1,538,691, and the PSFA construction would, PSCOC would kick in $3,590,280. If we decide to sign these MOUs and decide to get the design money, that's going to cost us, like I mentioned, $78,429 and $170,966 to design the facilities. That does not mean that we could actually have to build them if the funding wasn't available. We have never, in my 12 years of passing bonds, have included funding for pre-Ks at this time. So currently, on the construction or the GO bonds, there's not the funding necessary or has not been appropriated in any of our bond money. But through the ESSER funds, we have discussed and have appropriated $2 million towards this type of a project. So currently, we have ESSER funds, $2 million, which would cover several of these costs. And that's why I bring it for discussion to the board. Typically, I just bring one of these MOUs for signature because it's a given. We have approved it in a GO bond before, but this one has never been approved through a GO bond, and we definitely, if we take these steps, would have to make sure that we have the funding to go on to phase 2 if that was so the desire. Stand for questions.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Madam President, and just, so it would be just the 2 phases. At phase 2, that would be for completion, or?
Yeah, right. Phase 2 is the construction. So phase 1 is design. You have to hire an architect, design the facility, then you go out for pricing with, you take it to the PSCOC phase 2 and say, okay, now we're ready, as we're doing for Gadsden Middle School and Chaparral Middle School, we're ready to do the construction. Would you fund it for us? They're funding it. We get our portion, and then we do the construction. So that's a 2-phase project. Unlike Chaparral and Gadsden Middle School was a 3-phase project, which was the ed spec and feasibility, which we've done and approved. On April 25th, they will actually take that to the next phase, which would be phase 1 design. And then after we get a design, then we go for the funding. They do it in portions. They don't want to just give you all the money and all of a sudden you get halfway through the project and don't complete it. So phase 1 is design, phase 2 would be construction. Once the design is done, we signed the MOU. I did discuss this with the PSFA regional managers. If we sign the MOU, they have 30 days to sign it and get it into place. Once they did that, we would look for an architect. We'd do an RFP to get an architect, start the design fact for either or both of these phases, and then once we have finished the design, then we would ask for the phase 2 funding. If we had the money, or if things were going in the right direction, unless something changed, that's what we would be doing.
I do have a question. So the new Riverside On-Track Center, does it currently exist?
No, it doesn't. That was a discussion indicated through the central management team when we were discussing ESSER funds, indicating that, hey, we could always use more space down there. The letters that Ms. Burciaga has written indicate that we have 9 classrooms, if I recall off the top of my head, in different locations in the south part of the district here, in the Santa Teresa portion that I call. There's some classrooms down in Sunland Park, there's some classrooms in different areas, and it would always be the best, and Mrs. Estrella can stop up here, Mrs. Burciaga can come up here and let us know, it's probably best to consolidate all those classrooms, all those teachers, so that everybody's in the same building doing the same thing for those pre-K kids. Right now, the GAC here is no space for growth, and that would be one location, but if we could combine the rest of these classrooms that are spread out through the south and put them all in one location, that brings all the teachers together, the collaboration, the training, etc., makes it a lot easier, as well as the probably transportation for those students.
So this would mean that, so okay, thank you for clarifying that it doesn't exist. Where is this location? Where are we looking at?
Riverside has 25 acres, so if you've been driving into Riverside, as you come in the front, there's the school there where the original building was, and then we built the east wing or the south wing, depends how you call it. Up there behind that area, there's enough property that we could actually put in a sizable daycare. We'd use the same bus drop-off as we currently have back there, close to the daycare, and then we would just create a small parking lot for the staff there in that daycare. So the idea that has been tossed around and discussed would to be create a very similar, if not identical, plan that we have in Chaparral up in the Riverside southwest corner up there. Backside of the school, if you can picture Riverside. Mm-hmm. And so if you drive in and you go all the way around the school, it's in the back corner. Okay. That's an idea that's been tossed around, just to increase the space and try to get those people back together, but Mrs. Burstiaga wants to say something different?
No, just answer any questions. But we do have 13 classrooms just in this, in the southern part of our district. We have no room to grow. Our elementaries are maximized, so this would help in that area.
And this, so thank you for clarifying that it's going to be at Riverside Elementary. And then would there still be more room to grow if we need it out there at that site?
Yes, there's a lot of room. 25 acres is a lot. Typically, our current school, all our new elementaries, Gadsden Elementary, Yucca, have been built on 15-acre sites. So this is a lot of space out there to grow.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Yes, Madam President. Ms. Burciaga, you said that there's currently 13. So if that were the case to put it all in one area at Riverside, would it be just the 13 or would it be additional since there's a high need, right?
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, the facility is only designed, or I believe we applied for 8 classrooms at the Riverside. And so we would still utilize our on-track here, and it would give us a little more space to grow.
Sorry, I just saw that.
Okay, so, sorry. So then, I get what you said. Is there plans to continue here at this site and then or is there a plan to, maybe I'm asking the same thing, to eventually move them over there to where you have this massive pre-K center?
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, we already have the interest to fill our 6 classrooms here and the 8 classrooms at the new facility if it were to be. So that the occupancy would not be an issue. It gives us room to grow. As in our prior conversation, we want to grow with our community partners as well, so this opens the door to that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I think that, any further questions, comments? No? Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm assuming that after the meeting, we'll do signatures?
That's, the deadline is
It's listed as a
April 15th.
discussion item, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, it's a discussion item because we just got this recently, and it is due in 30 days, so I guess I could bring it back for an action, but it was more of a discussion to see if you guys had questions before you just signed a document saying that we accepted this. We did present it that we were going to, apply for this. We've discussed that before, that we're going to apply for the possibility of new funding and take advantage of that in the money. But let me see, the next meeting is...
It's after, right?
And its due deadline for acceptance of this award is April 15th, when that's past the next school board meeting.
Right.
So today...
Mr. Gauss, let me review that document immediately following, and because the board can't take action, it's not listed as an action item, but let me review it and see what we can do with that.
Okay, because this was just for discussion. The signatures are something we've always done prior without the discussion officially.
Okay.
This was just because the GOB bonds have never been approved, and I decided it's best to discuss it and have you guys have the opportunity, and if we don't get it done, we just don't get that opportunity. Okay?
Okay. Let me take a look at it, just so I can take a look. I think we can make it happen. Let me take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Moving on to discussion item 10D, the 2022-23 budget calendar. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Martinez is going to help us with this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. As we prepare for this year's annual budget report, we are proposing to hold the budget workshop on May 9th. We'd like to present the preliminary budget to the board on May 26th at that board meeting. And then we are proposing April 25th, which is a Monday, as the Finance Committee meeting date.
May 9th is what it is?
So May 9th is a Monday, and that would be the budget workshop. And then we would present the preliminary budget to the board for approval on May 26th. And then on April 25th, which is a Monday, it would be the Finance Committee meeting.
So then let me make sure. So then on April 25th, the two board members that represent us in the Finance Committee would be meeting with you, which is on Monday. And then on the 9th, that would be for all of us.
Right, any open to the public, whoever would like to attend.
And at what time would that be?
That's usually, let's see, it's usually in the afternoon, so that it would be at 5 o'clock p.m. here at the GAC boardroom.
And then for my sake, May 26th, I missed it.
Oh, the May 26th is just during the board meeting. I would present the preliminary budget.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments for Ms. Martinez? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I just might add, I'd strongly encourage anyone listening, anybody online, anyone interested in budget for next year, these are the dates and times to please engage in that process, because timelines run very quickly, and when New Mexico Public Education, we don't want to miss our due date on that. And so if they have questions or have thoughts, please engage in the process. We'll do our very best to answer those questions and try to address any concerns they have. But it is very important that they engage during these processes, because there's really not time to add additional meetings with our timelines.
So with what you just finished saying, Mr. Dempsey, so definitely May the 9th and May 26th, those are open to the public. What about the Finance Committee? I don't think, or I might be wrong. Is that open to the public?
The April 25th, is that what you're looking at? The
Yes.
April 25th?
Madam President, that is just for the committee.
Okay.
So that is not necessarily open to the public.
Yeah, that's how I, exactly.
Yeah,
So
I was asking, so in case somebody out there is wondering. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10E, post-issuance compliance report for the GO bonds. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Martinez is going to again present this item.
Madam President, members of the board, I bring to you for discussion the annual post-issuance compliance report. And so what this report provides is the dates and proof that the district is complying with the requirements, which are continuous disclosure, which it's a process in which the district provides financial data to the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. And what they do is, this information is necessary so that they know that we are being fair and transparent in the securities market. And then the other part of this is the IRS tax compliance, and this is for our tax-exempt bond provisions. And that's just another report that we filed, making sure that we are following those arbitrage limits on the interest bearing.
Okay, are there any questions, comments?
I'm sorry. No, and then if you look down at the bottom of the report, you can see there that we currently have outstanding principal on our bonds. This is for our bonds, is $43,730,000. And that report is as of March 31st, 2022.
Okay, questions, comments from Mrs. Martinez? No? Okay, I don't believe we have any. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, no. And you're going to continue. Sorry. Yes, so moving on to discussion item 10E, monthly budget report for the month ending February 28, 2022. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Martinez will again present this item.
Good afternoon. So for today's discussion is the monthly budget report for February 28, 2022. Our operational fund revenues were $87.1 million, which represents 67.85% of our operational budget revenues. Our expenditures were $74.8 million, or 41.69% of our budgeted expenditures. Our operational cash balance before loans was $69.5 million, and temporary loans were 5.3, so our available cash balance was $64.1 million at the end of February. We had grant funding agencies that owed the district approximately $7.5 million for grant funds, 64.1, I'm sorry, I missed my place. Okay, let me start again. Funding agencies owed the district approximately $7.5 million for grant funds, $78,000 for capital projects, and $894,000 for student nutrition. Total revenues were $152.8 million. Total expenditures were $129.1 million, and the district was in compliance with all pledge collateral requirements. And then on the back, you can see here, if you scroll down, that we have our internal review and the findings. Questions, comments? I do want to point out that of the outstanding reimbursements, $1.9 million was for our Medicaid fund, $2.2 million was for our IDEA B, and we have received those funds. We received them this week. That was one of our highest outstanding balances. And then we have $1.2 million for ESSER funds, for a total of $8.5 million. Questions?
Questions, comments, or concerns? I don't believe so. I was just going to say safe travels, because you and your team will be going tomorrow to the spring budget conference?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session.
And then, yes, and then read all of that, I believe.
Everything.
Yes, you have to read everything.
Everything.
Personnel session pursuant to 1015-1H-2 NMSA 1978 as amended for superintendents and associate superintendents report on recent personnel actions and issues, employees on administrative leave with pay, employee grievances, employee issues, superintendent's evaluation, and contract.
Okay, Mrs. Rodriguez has made a motion that we enter into closed session. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
Mrs. Delgado, can you please take roll call to enter into closed session?
Mr. Castillo?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Ms. Murillo?
Aye.